those? Because, I mean, in a nutshell, let's just get down to what are the benefits of stem cells, of the stem cell research?
There's many benefits, obviously. There's benefits in all the things you've heard about with, you know, spinal cord injuries and regenerating, you know, organs and all of these things. So far, what they've been doing is what's proven to be very successful is hematopoietic stem cell replacement, basically, which is a bone marrow transplant. And those have been great for curing blood cancers and whatnot. But they are very, it's still very early, and you have to do all kinds of, it's still very early, like a lot of stem cell research. But the biggest problem, I guess, with stem cell research is that if you try to use something from a human embryonic stem cell, you're going to have rejection. However, if you use a induced pluripotent stem cell, which is basically you take the like Dave was saying before with somatic cell nuclear transfer, that's basically where you take an egg cell and you transfect you transfer the nucleus of one of your cells from somewhere in your body, like a blood cell or skin cell, epithelial cell from somewhere in your body, transfer that into an oocyte, and then you get the vast demethylation of the genome and other things that occur at fertilization to kind of restart the genome, to restart the cell into a more stem cell state. And that has great benefits, obviously, in, you know, with you get the benefit of having a stem cell, but also you don't get that rejection because it's your own cell. So they both have their drawbacks and their advantages. So with induced pluripotent stem cells, like I was talking about with somatic transfer, you can also transfect certain genes into your cells that can cause the cells to take on a more stem-like state. They can kind of revert them back into an earlier lineage, earlier developmental lineage state. I guess a lot of the things I'm saying, I feel like I hope I'm not being too confusing. Should I explain the words I'm using?
Well, yeah, let's back up a little bit. And talk a little bit about what a stem cell is, and why I do want to get religion to this a little bit too, but I want to talk about where they come from, what they actually are that makes them different from other types of cells, why that difference is so important for research, and then I want to talk about why religious people have such an objection to the use of this specific type of cell. So let's start with what is a stem cell that makes it like this stem-like state. What does that mean? What makes this different from a muscle cell or from a white blood cell or whatever else?
Yeah, of course. So in development, you have sperm and egg meet, and then so those are two haploid, or they have half the genomic data. When they meet, you get the whole genomic data, and there's events that happen within the zygote. Once those two meet, they become a zygote. And there's changes that happen in the cell that cause it to revert to a more stem-like state, which means that, where it's totipotent or pluripotent is another word that people use, and that just means that it can, if you give it a certain environment or certain factors, it can arise into any cell that you choose to have it turn into. Normally in development, what happens is you have sperm and egg meet, you form a zygote, then you form a blastocyst, and then you form a gastrula, which during the gastrula stage, you have the three germ layers form: endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. And the endoderm, you're going to have your inner most organs, the insides of your gut and whatnot. The mesoderm is where your blood, bones, and muscles and all of those kinds of cells come from. And ectoderm is where you get, your skin, cells like that. So once the cells create that lineage, once they decide that they're going to be endoderm or mesoderm or ectoderm, it's very hard for them to revert back to a previous state.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about, where once they make a decision to become a cell, it's very hard for them to go back.
So just to make sure I'm following along here, so basically a stem cell, and please correct me if I don't have this right. So a stem cell is basically a cell that has the potential to become any type of cell,
yes,
as opposed to later on once they've differentiated into these different types. So for I guess for research purposes, then the stem cell is very valuable if you're trying to create different types of cells for different purposes of research or different purposes of therapy.
Yeah, like in my lab, we use it to differentiate them or to cause them to go down a lineage towards trophoblasts, which are the invasive part of the placenta, like I was saying. So, many labs use them in that context where they use them as a tool to make the cells decide to become a certain cell. And oftentimes those very early forms of those cells are very important in a lot of diseases and a lot of conditions that arise in development that oftentimes are very hard to get rid of because of the lineage decisions that these cells have to make that they oftentimes cannot go back to.
Okay. And so I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so as far as where religion becomes an issue with this, so going back to what you were saying about, sperm and egg meet, you get a zygote.
Yes.
So according to a lot of, now, I mean, obviously, in the Bible, it never says sperm, egg, zygote. None of this is in there. This is way outside of their realm of knowledge. The writers of those.
But it depends on how you interpret it. It's
right.
In there.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're
I
looking
actually
at
have some notes on this.
yeah. I mean, once you throw in the word interpret, anything goes. There's no. I mean, you can make up whatever you want, but so strictly speaking, none of this is in there. It's all interpretation. But the problem that a lot of religious people have with it is because of interpretations of how this works. If you believe, now obviously souls aren't actually a real thing, but or at least, let me be fair, we've never found any that would indicate that souls are a real thing. I can't say that they don't exist, but they don't exist. So, I mean,
the religious people, show me a way to measure a soul, and I will try to measure it. Okay, but
I mean, until we have any evidence, some evidence, the default is that we assume that they don't. It's reasonable to believe that they don't, unless we have some reason to believe that they do, and an intuition that they do or a wish that they do is not enough. There's no evidence that they do. And so this religious idea that consciousness is not some evolved trait in sufficiently complex brains, but it's something that like jumps into a zygote magically, is a religious idea. It's not backed up by anything. And I guess what the issue here is that you are destroying embryos in the process of what you're doing. Is that right?
Yeah, in order to make embryonic stem cells, you have to take out the cells from the inner cell mass of a blastocyst, which basically, a blastocyst is you've got your, there's a ring of cell, it's a ball of cells, and then on the inside you have another little cluster of cells inside of there. And those are the cells that we use in culture that proliferate indefinitely, and or at least so far we've found that they proliferate very well in the lab. They're very well characterized. So the cells that we use in the inner cell mass is what we use in the lab, and that requires destroying the whole embryo.
Yeah. So we're not talking about something that's like the pictures that you see on the anti-abortion posters that look like
no.
No, I mean, this is way before that. All right. Okay. So I mean, it's
a ball of cells. Yeah.
It's a ball of cells. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a magical thinking idea that there's anything more to it than just a ball of cells, which are, they're pretty cool. I mean, in a scientific sense, there's a lot going on there, but there's nothing more than that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, one argument that some scientists actually bring up with personhood and if it happens at fertilization or not. So they say that genomic DNA, I mean, forget about ensoulment, but a person becomes a person when they get a full set of a full genome all to themselves, I guess, and that means that they're a person. Although the counter argument to that, for me at least, is that say you have identical twins, they have the exact same genome,
right,
but they end up being different people. They end up having different, personalities, different experiences, and that's...
Yeah, so like at what point does the soul, like...
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Like in her 50s or something, they were snatched on like an old Polaroid or something. But it could be. I don't know. It could be maybe she'll either come like in a zombie-like fashion, or perhaps